long as we have faith in our cause
I'm Mike.
and unconquerable willpower,
I'm Dave.
salvation will not be denied us.
And this is Between the Lines.
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Is it easier for you to go and buy things in a store than it was 4 years ago?
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
And we're back.
I'm back.
Yeah, welcome back, Dave.
Yeah.
He's back.
I'm
in the flesh.
back from the hills of West Virginia, IA.
Welcome back, Mr. Cocktail.
Mr. Kata.
For those that are old enough to get that reference.
For those of you who've ever driven through West Virginia,
Uh-oh.
how often do you replace your brake pads out in the course of a 12-month period? Because my estimations is that they're replacing them out just about every other month.
Well, there's a reason. I don't think West Virginia has to go through inspections. I don't think they have inspections like we do here in Pennsylvania.
They also have permitless carry there.
Oh, that's nice.
That
That's
I
nice.
didn't know.
Yeah.
So I was checking like the reciprocity rules between Pennsylvania and West Virginia, and of course it gives a breakdown of ones that are green, which means that they line up. The state lines up directly with what the laws are in that state. Whereas West Virginia was a yellow, so it was a yes with conditions. The conditions basically being is that it's a permitless carry state.
Interesting.
It's weird. It's basically you have to match. It's almost more free than we are with regards to
Makes sense.
to carry, which is interesting. So
We do have a Nazi governor. So.
yeah, that's true, and it's crazy because, I mean, it's such a diversity of opinion and belief there. It's like very conservative, but very like up to speed too. Like I don't know how to explain it.
I'm just going to check the ticker here while I'm while we're talking.
That guy.
We have 156 days, 9 hours, 57 minutes, and 51 seconds until Tom Wolfe leaves office.
That sounds like a Rent song. 156 days, dear 9 minutes.
So,
until Tom Wolfe is out.
Anybody that wants to check out the ticker, you can go to our website, thebtlpodcast.com, and we have a ticker at the top of our webpage that shows you how long until we get a new governor. That's how much we love the man.
Yeah. What cracks me up is just, I use YouTube quite a bit for some things, and just how many ads on there from Shapiro. It's just ridiculous.
It is.
By the way, if those of you didn't know, Shapiro contributed most of the funds that Mastriano is using for his.
Yeah, he was contributing to the to Doug Mastriano's campaign.
And now they're trying to bash him because he's. There's a very strong chance that he could pull this out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll put it this perspective. I'm not 100% for Mastriano because there's some things I don't line up with him on.
Yeah.
But in light of the whole Wolf-Shapiro lineage or bloodline, so to speak, of thought, I'd sooner have Mastriano in office.
I'd rather have a conspiracy theorist as a governor than a biofascist.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and Shapiro is a Philadelphia attorney. I'm from Philadelphia. I don't like attorneys from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
I only like cheesesteaks from Philadelphia.
pretty much.
That's what I
point.
like from Philadelphia.
But yeah.
Dave had last week was on vacation, so I was flying solo. You can go back and check out that episode. I talked about the Alex Jones verdict and the ridiculousness that goes along with that. Before that, we had an episode on the 47 Ronin, where we talked about some Japanese history and things like that. Go back and check that out. Most of all, for today's purposes, I'd like everyone to go back and check out our episode on the Fourth Amendment and illegal searches and seizures. And we were going to do an episode on the Fifth Amendment today, but recent events seem a little bit more pertinent to what's going on in the world today than talking about
Every
the Fifth Amendment.
week, it seems like
It's ridiculous.
There's at least 2 or 3 like major. Not to say there's news all over the place.
Yeah,
But I mean, if you tried to cover it all, you'd lose your mind.
absolutely,
But there's some bigger things at the head, I guess.
It was Monday. Was it Monday? What day was it?
Before we get into that,
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. You have.
a little bit of a trip to the local Asian supermarket down in State College, and I felt like I should pick up a couple of these to try them out. So I feel like before we start talking, we all have to eat one of these. So just for those out there, I can't read Chinese script. If you can, more power to you. The description on this is odd taste broad bean parentheses fried. So for all that tells me is absolutely nothing. But we're gonna try these out and hopefully not die.
What do we got here?
You just have to taste them. That's the only thing I can tell you. I can't explain them.
All right, I'm
So-
gonna switch to my. Here's what we got here. It's some sort of crunchiness.
They have some kick too.
Yeah, coming in on the back end there.
Aren't they delicious?
They're not bad.
No. I think it's because there's maple in them.
I taste the maple.
It's such a weird combination, though. Apparently, there's some radioactive ingredient emanating from these.
Okay. Well, they're warm. They got some kick on the back end. I really do wish I could read what was in these. Oh, there we go. Okay. Ingredients.
Yeah, you can see the ingredients.
Broad beans, granulated sugar, malt syrup, vegetable oil, edible salt.
As
I
opposed
don't,
to
I don't know why they have to clarify. I mean, I guess there's rock salt, but chili. Good old MSG, monosodium glutamate. Chinese prickly ash, spice,
just random.
edible flavors and fragrances, and food additives.
I've never ate a fragrance before.
No, I never have. Spices are processed. Man, I'm getting a little running there. Spices are processed according to the usual international irradiation technology. Origin, Chengdu City, Sichuan Province.
You've been irradiated.
So they're from, it's Sichuan. Okay. Store in a cool, dry place. Shelf life 9 months. Wow.
It's that MSG.
Yeah.
Keeps these things fresh for...
Eating method. Open to eat directly. As opposed to chewing on the whole package.
Don't put the bag in your mouth.
So this is what we got. I'll show you on this cam too, just so it's a little clearer. Kusho.
I've never heard of an odd bean in my life.
Yeah. That's where it's at.
They're actually not bad.
They're not horrible. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
But they're not horrible. I don't know that I would sit and eat a whole bag of these. But if you're hungry and wanted a snack.
It's because of the sweet and the spicy.
Yeah.
They kind of...
Whoa. 2 servings per container. 2 serving. Now, does that mean one of these is a container?
I don't know. So you're probably getting enough salt for like the month.
331 calories per serving, and there's 2 servings per container. So does that mean this is a container?
I don't know.
Or does that mean this is a container? I don't know. Yeah, sodium 31%. 459 milligrams of sodium. The Chinese really love their salt. I'm telling you. They're not bad though. I'm going to be honest.
We'll try one of these later.
There
in
you
the
go. There
episode.
you go. But it does have for those. There's only 1 gram of sugar. Total carbohydrates are 52 grams though. So that's a pretty high hit if you're doing keto. However, 9.6 grams of protein. So there's quite a bit of protein in these. No cholesterol, no
It's
fat.
probably because it's the beans. The beans are
Yeah.
high in protein.
Yeah. So, I mean,
It's bad and good at the same time.
it's food.
It's food.
It's food.
It's food.
It certainly is food, and it's probably better for you than the American alternative.
Yeah. Well, even their versions of McDonald's in China have different menus.
Yeah.
Like way different menus.
Yeah.
And
The one that I think is interesting are the McDonald's in India, because they can't have the beef, so like everything's chicken based.
well,
or,
believe it or not, though, like some of the McDonald's there, they do serve beef, but they have blinds on the windows
so
that-
you don't,
so
you can
people
do it
can't see.
private.
Yes.
Yeah,
They might even have private rooms. Who knows?
like a strip club for hamburgers.
You just hear the Blue Oyster
Yeah.
music and people.
Oh well, we got that. Let me just unlock my phone here.
I can,
But yeah, you walk into your Chinese or your Indian McDonald's and order a hamburger. So good. We're nuts. We're nuts here.
These are nuts. But anyways,
Yeah, so they're not bad. They're not bad. So
they weren't what I was expecting, because I've seen some people try some weird stuff in those, those multi-packs that you
Oh,
can buy,
yeah.
those mystery boxes.
let's bring up the website. See what the website looks like. 86CY.
Long as we have
Playing the intro again. I forgot we have hotkeys.
I didn't bring the whiskey today. I was going to bring whiskey today. It's a good thing I
It's a
did.
good thing you didn't. We're already off to a bad start. All right, let's bring up the website here, 86cy.com. And, oh, look at here.
Man, if that doesn't speak of good food right there.
Let's look at it in English. Into news. Oh, company news. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Fighting the epidemic together. February 2020. So that hasn't been updated in a while. Products. See what else we got here. Oh, dried fish. Everyone loves some cod fillet. Shredded squid charcoal grilled flavor.
I was actually going to bring something like that to see if.
Twice cooked fish spicy flavor. Crispy shrimp spicy flavor. Eel shredded spicy. Yeah, I'm going to pass.
Anchovy.
I'm going to pass on all of these. Next page. Same thing. Okay. We're probably getting all kinds of malware from this from this website. I'm just saying.
Hey, you want to call their hotline and see if
Oh, that'd be so great. Contact us. Yeah, they're really.
we should do that on one of our episodes. Just pick random phone numbers of.
Online map. Hey, there they are. They're right there. Let's zoom out. Nope, satellites aren't allowed to go over China. Can't do it. Anyway, that was they're interesting. They're interesting, if nothing else. I'll give you interesting. I'll give you that. So this week,
Was it the 8th or the 6th?
I think it was the 8th. FBI Mar-a-Lago. There was a little bit of a big to do 4 days ago. So yeah, I want to say it was Monday or Tuesday. of this week, the FBI served a search warrant on former President Donald Trump's personal home, searching for what they considered to be classified top secret documents. It was alleged that he has nuclear secrets in the documents. No such documents have been recovered that we're aware of yet. So we're gonna preface this with a great big grain of salt, that there may be some bad stuff there. There may be some wrongdoing. If it is, then it is what I would consider to be major, wrongdoing, and should be held accountable. No matter what, no matter who you are. On its face, though, I just, before we get into that, I want to preface that we're 100% for law and order. We have to preface this, otherwise, we look like conspiracy theorists or, Trump apologists or something along those lines, and that's not where we're getting at here. We're simply looking at this from a constitutional rights standpoint and from the standpoint of what would happen to any one of us as an American citizen if these things were to happen to us. So there was a raid executed on, I know you're not supposed to use the word raid, but what else are you supposed to call it? They raided his house. They executed a search warrant on his property while he was not home. His lawyers were not allowed to be present during the search, which is unusual. The warrant was incredibly overbroad, which is unusual. But all that being said, this entire thing is unusual.
Yeah.
It's something that has never happened before in the history of our country, where a former president's home is raided by law enforcement, even under the auspices of a legal search warrant.
Yeah.
That's never happened before.
So first time in history that a president's home has ever been invaded under these pretenses.
Yeah. Very bad optics, as the current president is going to be running against the former president as it looks right now. So essentially, the Department of Justice for the current president is executing search warrants against his opponent, which doesn't look good.
No.
The president of El Salvador condemned the raid, and his point was, what would the opinion be in the U.S. if the president of El Salvador launched an investigation against his opponents in an election year? It's not an election year in the United States, but it is midterms coming up.
Yeah.
And this is the biggest election before the presidential election. And again, if any wrongdoing was done, we want to see justice for that.
Yep.
But on its face, it does not look good for the DOJ, Merrick Garland, Christopher Wray, and the FBI. Reason being is Merrick Garland, who personally has...
Well, he signed off on the
off on the warrant, and he personally has, whether it's conscious bias or unconscious bias, he has bias against President Trump. For those of you that don't remember, Obama nominated Merrick Garland to fill Anton Scalia's seat when Anton Scalia passed away on the Supreme Court, and Republicans blocked the nomination, and Trump did not renominate him and instead nominated Neil Gorsuch, who is now on the bench. And I personally feel like Merrick Garland has never has never gotten over that hit to his career and to his ego. So there's definite bias there that should be questioned.
Yeah.
Whether or not the warrant was issued with any malice is yet to be determined, because we don't know. We have a good idea of what was seized, but because it's top secret information, they're not releasing the documents that were seized.
I guess my question, and this is just because I'm ignorant of the process with regards to the DOJ, what authority does the head of the DOJ have to sign off on a warrant as opposed to a judge overseeing that specific district?
Well, it wasn't that the judge still has to, and a judge did sign off on the warrant. What they meant was it was Merrick Garland that approved the warrant to go to a judge.
Okay.
The judge ultimately would have had to, he would have been the last, line of defense, so to speak, before the warrant was issued. But he did issue the warrant. It was a magistrate judge in the Southern District of Florida. I believe his last name was Reinhardt. Not that it really matters, but what worries me about the entire thing is the broadness of the warrant itself. We talked about in our episode, May the 4th be with you. Go back and check that one out. We talked about warrants have to be very specific. According to the Constitution, the Fourth Amendment, it has to be very specific as to what you're searching for and where you're going to search for it. This warrant was incredibly overbroad, essentially giving them fair game to search the entire house for whatever they could find.
Well, it gave them the right to basically put their stamp of evidentiary collection on anything and everything. That would be like somebody coming into your house under the pretense of a murder investigation and then taking cash out of your safe because it has, it's just stuff that's unrelated to the investigation itself, know.
And I have a copy of the warrant. I'll bring up here. So the part that's egregious to me, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's egregious, but it's definitely, yes, it was Bruce Reinhardt. Not that matters, but that's who signed off on it. All right. The premises to be searched was Mar-a-Lago. That's the actual address of Mar-a-Lago, so I'm not going to get into that. Locations to be searched right here. This is how broad it is. The 45 office, which is Donald Trump's personal office in his home, all storage rooms and all other rooms or areas within the premises and used or available to be used by the former President of the United States and his staff, and in which boxes or documents could be stored, including all structures or buildings on the estate. That's everywhere.
Yeah.
It does not include areas at the time of the search being occupied, rented, or used by third parties such as Mar-a-Lago members and not otherwise used, available by the former President of the United States and his staff, such as private guest suites. So pretty much his entire personal property is able to be searched looking for, and here's where it gets even worse for me. Property to be seized. All physical documents and records constituting evidence, contraband, fruits of crime, or other items illegally possessed in violation, blah, 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 including the following. Any physical documents with classification markings, along with any containers, boxes, including any other contents in which such documents are located, as well as any other containers, boxes that are collectively stored or found together with the aforementioned documents and containers and boxes, information including communications in any form regarding the retrieval, storage, or transmission of national defense information or classified material, any government and or presidential records created between January 20th, 2017 and January 20th, 2021, or any evidence of the knowing alteration, destruction, or concealment of any government and or presidential records or of any documents with classification markings. So, pretty much any documents that were found with classification markings and any documents that are in surrounding areas of documents with classification markings and any containers. So pretty much anything. The receipt for property goes on collected and seized property were documents, box labeled A14, A17, or A14, A26, 43, 13, 33. And then another receipt for property. So essentially his executive order for clemency against Roger Stone, a letter from the president of France, a leather-bound box of documents, various classified, top secret, or compartmentalized documents, potential presidential record, a binder of photos, handwritten note, more boxes, miscellaneous secret documents, miscellaneous top secret documents. Now, here's the thing. Bill Maher even said something on his show related to this. The word secret and the word classified and even the word top secret is very broad. Again, as we prefaced at the beginning of the show, if anything illegal was done, obviously they should be held, former President Trump should be held accountable for whatever illegal activities were done. However, this warrant and this whole thing is kind of fishy smelling.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the thing of it is that, you know, the whole what the news stations have been running with is the immediate statement of what they were looking for. So it's like they randomly threw in this statement of nuclear documentation. So to me, what that screams to me about from the get-go is that that's like me doing a raid on somebody I hate and putting weed in their bag and then finding it. So that's how it speaks to me. Now, again, based off of what you said, if they do find that documentation, if they can actually corroborate that documentation is there by a third-party audit, not by the FBI, because at this point, the FBI has lost a lot of its credibility in just over the last, and I wouldn't even say over the Trump presidency, just over the last 10 to 20 years.
Since Waco.
Yeah, since Waco, they have lost. So this isn't an immediate misrepresentation of the FBI. The FBI has been misrepresenting themselves for decades at this point.
Yeah.
So this is just a general distrust that is just coming to the head because of what's going on, but it's being labeled as libel because, you know, the subject matter is Donald Trump right now.
Yep.
And so that's part of it. But yeah, keep going on what you were saying. There's actually something I wanted to bring up that came up in January that kind of ties into this. But
yeah, so essentially the things that I have issue with are all constitutional. I have no problem with the warrant.
Yeah.
I have no problem with preserving documents. I have no problem with any of the legal part of this. What I have issue with is this is a very overbroad warrant, for one. Two, everyone involved has bias against the president, from Merrick Garland, who was slighted out of a Supreme Court seat, to Christopher Wray, who has had his run-ins with Donald Trump on several occasions, all the way down the line, rank and file. So that bothers me.
yeah,
The other thing that bothers me is that President Trump's lawyers were not allowed to be present during the search. That's highly unusual. Generally, at least the lawyers are allowed to be present. Now, they're not allowed to interfere. They're allowed to kind of sit back and watch what's going on, just to make sure, like, I'm not trying to be conspiratorial here, but if the police raided your home and you weren't allowed inside while they were searching, how would you know that they weren't planting evidence in your house?
And that's the whole point of it, is to have a third party, not so much for them to sit there and say, well, that don't pay attention to that and don't pay attention to that. It's for them to make sure that as the scene is, as the environment sits right now, that's how it should be. It should be virtually undisturbed, except for the fact that things are being removed from it that
Absolutely.
were already in that environment.
Yep. And essentially it's just so the lawyer can say, yeah, the chain of custody was impeccable. They took the documents from areas that they said that they took them from. The way that it sits now, you had plainclothes, we'll call it, plainclothes FBI agents just wandering around Mar-a-Lago searching. They were searching Melania's underwear drawer. They were searching her wardrobe. They were searching places that really had nothing to do with the price of rice of China. So why would you do such an overbroad warrant if you're looking for documents? The other thing that bothers me is that the NARA, the National Archives Records Agency, had been in contact with the Trump team all spring, requesting documents, serving subpoenas, and every time they requested anything, the Trump team gave it up. They even invited the FBI down to Mar-a-Lago while Trump was there and allowed them into their windowless storage facility to search through there, and the FBI agents were allowed to rifle through the documents for hours. Again, if you have anything to hide, why would you allow the FBI in there to search around? If you were hiding something, and essentially they asked him to put a second lock, a stronger lock on the storage facility just to make it more secure. He did that. He gave them the documents that they requested. I just don't understand how we got to the warrant aspect of it. It escalated very quickly.
In other words, they've had multiple opportunities to collect the information under normal pretenses. Within that, it was actually, you already beat me to the punch, but there was a story that came up back in February with regards to our former presidents allowed to take home official documentation. And there's always this back and forth. Now, given the light of this situation and the environment and the ethos that's surrounding this specific situation, immediately the trigger words that are being fired off in the media right now are to incline a person to believe that a president has no right to any documentation during the course of their presidency, and that's incorrect.
Absolutely.
That's completely incorrect. In fact, there was a Presidential Records Act that was passed back in 1978, which has been modified and amended over the last couple of years. The tricky part of it is that it was Nixon that actually was kind of the one.
Ironically enough.
He was the one that kind of spearheaded this, and it was put into place. It was intentioned.
Yeah.
Like from his, seeing who intended, but it's been used by multiple different presidents since then. President Barack Obama left office with an estimated 30 million documents, but it went through a process of, I guess, looked at the documents. They were held in confidence, or
he did it a little bit differently, and what I would consider the proper way to do it. He transferred the documents to a federal facility in Chicago, and they were kept under lock and key there. Again, it's a federal building, but it's not any different than keeping them in a private storage facility. As long as they're being stored securely, then you're following protocol and you're doing what needs to be done. The only thing that the Presidential Records Act that I'm aware of, the only thing that it says is that you're not allowed to destroy documents or alter them or, things of that nature. Which has already been alleged. It's been alleged that he was flushing documents, but there's no proof to that. Nobody's ever been able to corroborate that other than some anonymous staff that say that they think that he was flushing documents down the toilet at the White House.
I guess my question with regards to these documents, are these considered originals or are these considered...
And that's the other thing is he would not have the originals. He would have copies. It's already been discussed and corroborated that these are not the original documents.
These are just copies.
These are copies.
So these are still in the
Yes.
possession of the parties that are supposed to be in possession of
every
them.
one of these documents in question, as far as I understand, I'm willing to be wrong, but as far as I've gathered, there are copies of these documents already in the National Archives. What's at contest here and what's being debated is whether these documents are top secret or confidential, or things along those lines. If they are top secret, then they have to be declassified before he's actually allowed to have them. I think. I don't know how that works.
Well, that's the whole argument piece too, is whether or not a president's allowed to declassify documents. But
The president, just to not to interrupt, but the president has the sole discretion. He's the only one that can declassify documents.
This article, it actually talks about. So this professor was talking about, or Kel McClanahan at the George Washington University Law School. Made a statement that a president has discretion on what docs to retain as presidential records while in office. So a lot of this pertains to national archives, like libraries.
Yep.
So when libraries, most presidents within however many years have had libraries dedicated to them. So they retain a certain number of documents that kind of paint a picture of the history
of their
presidency. So these are essentially declassified because they're allowed to become public archive.
Yep.
These are not like, it's not part of the public archive to have the blueprint for building a warhead,
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So the documents that he has copies of were ones that were approved for him to keep in confidence, or copies of, for retention, for delivering them to a library potentially for his, and there's even conversation between him and NARA that's documented with regards to these release documents, like this one in February where he released, I think it was an estimated 15 boxes worth of documents back to NARA for, I can't remember what the purpose was, but they had requested them and he gave them to them.
Yep.
So again, this is just painting this big picture of bullshit.
Yep.
A big bullshit picture is what it's painting at this point.
And again, I can't preface enough. If there are bad things in these documents, then that should be dealt with, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But until that information is released, on its face, this looks really, really bad.
Yeah.
This looks really, 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 really bad for the Department of Justice and the FBI and Merrick Garland and even Joe Biden, because and that's the other thing. Joe Biden says he has no idea that this happened. I cannot in my wildest dreams picture a world where the very first execution of a warrant against the former president of the United States isn't discussed with the head of the executive branch.
Yeah.
I cannot.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't discussed with Biden, that's another problem.
Yeah.
He is the head of the executive branch. He should have known about it.
Yeah.
He should have.
But there again, talking to Biden's
mental deficiencies aside, he's still the president of the United States.
He's still culpable.
He still has duties that he has to perform under the Constitution, and one is the head of the executive branch.
Yeah.
The whole purpose of his job is to execute the laws of the United States.
Yeah.
I find it very hard to believe that Joe Biden had no clue. I mean, then again, Joe Biden doesn't. I probably can't even put his pants on in the morning. But
the thing of it is that the whole media cycle just drives me. That's
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. Like, I've been separating myself from some of the media cycle, even though this is a lot of what we cover. Because the problem is a lot of what they cover is just it's insightful.
yeah,
Not insightful in like INSIGHTFUL. Insightful as in
Inciting.
INCIT. You know, it's done with
Provocative.
it's provocative. It's done with the intent to incite some kind of anger almost.
which is exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened because there was a guy the next day that attacked the FBI in Ohio.
Yeah, I heard about that.
In Ohio, and in all intents and purposes, it was because of the raid on Donald Trump. In fact, there's no intents and purposes. He came out and said on social media that that's why he was doing it, because of the raid on Donald Trump. I'm going to say, as we've said 100 times on here, that any political violence
Yeah.
is unacceptable.
Well,
Whether it comes from the left or the right, it's unacceptable.
Well, the moment you enter into that kind of sphere, you obfuscate any real story at that point.
Yeah.
You know, really what it boils down to is if you can get the other party to get so mad to where they start doing stupid shit like that, then they immediately start discrediting themselves, you know, when they try to make any statements to the contrary.
It certainly appears like they're trying to be provocative.
Yeah.
It certainly appears on its face, and not just for this incident either. It just seems like every single thing that the Department of Justice is doing, the Biden administration, the FBI, like the FBI recently came out with a I don't have a copy of the document, but it was essentially a guidance document for field officers describing what symbols are to be considered extremist symbols. And now the Gadsden flag is considered a symbol of domestic terrorism. The Betsy Ross flag is considered a symbol of domestic terrorism. The Spartan mask, the Punisher mask, all of these different symbols, like the Gadsden flag and the Betsy Ross flag, are historical flags. The Gadsden flag was one of the first flags of our nation, and it was flown by the Continental Marines during the Revolutionary War as their battle flag. And now
it's hyperbole.
It's considered a symbol of domestic terrorism. Why do you think that is? Because the right embraces the Don't Tread on Me flag, which is the Gadsden flag, and the Betsy Ross flag. They also consider images of the Revolutionary War to be symbols of domestic terrorism. I will preface that the FBI direction did say that these symbols alone should not I'm going to preface. These symbols alone should not constitute search and seizure or anything along those lines. But the fact that these directives are being handed down, this is the same thing as them weaponizing the Department of Education against parents.
Yeah.
And
Well, that was Merrick.
Yeah.
That was Merrick. It was Merrick saying that if anybody disrupts inside of one of these meetings, they should be considered terrorists.
Yeah, exactly.
You saw how much this guy, everything he does, everything he does
is provocative.
Everything he says, you know, but nobody's questioning. Nobody, at least the powers that
nobody dare question, and that's what's worrisome.
But now, of course, you've got Rand calling for impeachment articles against Merrick.
Yeah, the House of Representatives, Marjorie Taylor Greene she's wackadoodle.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, she's wackadoodle, but she introduced articles of impeachment. I really do feel that there needs to be an investigation first, because there's no way that the current House of Representatives is going to impeach Merrick Garland.
No,
there's absolutely no way. But if Republicans win the House and the Senate in November, or at least the House.
Yeah.
Here's the biggest thing to take away from this. The biggest thing to take away from this. The warrant was way overbroad and should have been contested on that measure alone. But the lawyers they didn't even get a physical copy until like a couple days later when they requested a physical copy of the warrant and the receipts.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be presented with the warrant. You're supposed to be served with the warrant during the raid. And that didn't happen. So the whole thing just stinks.
Yeah.
It's just
So,
stinks.
I mean, it really, again, it comes back to this whole thing is that the activities from both sides in different settings kind of obfuscates the opportunity to really like pin down what's really going on in some cases. You know what I mean? It's like, we'll have reactions and, actions that are happening in the context of this story that make it almost impossible to get a clear idea as to what is really going on. So even after they start, because right now all that's being touched on is just the surface, superficial BS that they only ever. It's like, all right, well, he claimed the fifth. He invoked the fifth. It's like everybody does that.
You're supposed to.
You're supposed to. So now they're using that against him. It's like,
well, they say, well, the reason they're doing that is because he said on several occasions, why, if you're not guilty, why would you plead the fifth? Which is a stupid statement. That's dumb. It was dumb for him to say that, and he's stupid if he believes that. But he came out with a statement after this, and he's like, well, he actually said, let me pull up the quote, because he actually said something about that. He said something along the lines of, now I understand why. And this is from CNBC, so it can be trusted. Sorry, I don't want your spam ads. Oh, are you kidding me? They give me a video. Here's from the BBC. Come on with the ads. Lot of dead air.
this is the most exciting part of our.
Oh yeah.
This is when we.
I can't even find it. I'm just going to paraphrase because I don't want to waste a bunch of time trying to find it. But he essentially said he acknowledged the comments that he's made in the past, and he said, in the past I've said, if you're guilty, then why would you plead the fifth? And he says he now understands that there could be an entire cabal of bureaucrats and people with grudges that will smear your name and make you look guilty when you're not. So that's why you plead the fifth. That's exactly why you plead the fifth. You plead the fifth because anything that you say can and will be held against you in the court of law.
Well, it's also that idea is that you don't have to submit yourself to inquiry until you're in the presence of your defense and in the presence of, a jury.
Yep.
You don't. That's the whole point of it. We were still watching Yellowstone. The new season's coming out in, I guess it's November. There's a new season, 5th season coming out.
Yeah. I'm excited.
But at the end, not to do any spoilers here, but at the end, there's a girl that Dutton gets intertwined with.
Yep.
She ends up going to jail, and the judge that he knows personally ends up like throwing the book at her, essentially like 15 years for every offense, and ends up basically condemning her to life almost in prison for stuff that shouldn't, be the case. But Dutton made the suggestion to her prior to her. She was going to change her plea to guilty so that she would get a reduced sentence because that was the carrot.
Yep.
The carrot was but she ended up doing that. and then ended up getting the book thrown at her because the judge is not withholden to the plea bargains
Yep.
that are decided by the parties.
That's right.
So Dutton told her it's like change your plea to not guilty because I trust a jury more than I do a judge. But she ended up not following his advice, and as a result, ended up getting the book thrown at her.
Yep.
But of course, Dutton does his thing and
Does
his thing. But
I'm gonna play a little clip. I hope it's the right clip. This is why you plead the fifth. This is a clip from the movie My Cousin Vinny. So if anybody has ever
Classic.
seen, this is a classic movie. But this is exactly why you plead the fifth. So I'm just gonna go ahead and play this here.
Let's talk about that for a moment. You paid for the groceries. And then what?
We went out to the car, and that's it.
When'd you shoot him?
For a little bit of in case you haven't seen the movie, spoiler alert for one. Second, he thinks he's being arrested for stealing a can of tuna.
exactly.
So he's gone through the whole confession, and now we're at this point where he's like, okay, well, when did you shoot him? And he's like, wait a second, because he thinks that he's been arrested for stealing a can of tuna.
Yeah, they're on two different pages basically right now.
So here, continue here.
What?
At what point did you shoot the clerk?
I shot the clerk.
Yes, when did you shoot him?
I shot the clerk.
Hey, Dean, we need you out here.
I'm in the middle of a damn confession here.
Whoa! Wait a minute!
Then it goes to trial.
I asked him if he did it, and he said, I shot the clerk. I asked him again. And again he said, I shot the clerk.
Now, he did indeed say, I shot the clerk.
Except that in his statement, there's no question
There's
mark.
no question mark at the end of that. This is exactly why you plead the fifth, because your words can and will
Be taken
used-
out of context.
and used against you in a court of law. So he said, I shot the clerk. That was a question, but they wrote it down as he stated, I shot the clerk.
It's a perfect example, yeah.
So that's why you plead the fifth.
It's all about syntax.
Exactly. It's context. It's they. Of course, in a transcription, the black and white is going to say, I asked him, when did you shoot the clerk? And he said, I shot the clerk. I repeated again, and he again said, I shot the clerk,
Well,
which
Eric-
is absolutely true.
Eric Clapton shot the sheriff.
That's true. But he didn't shoot the deputy.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
he also likes cocaine.
but
Apparently.
that's a perfect example. I hope we don't get a copyright strike
Yeah.
for that, but I don't think we will. But that's a perfect example
Yeah.
of why you plead the fifth.
Yeah.
Because things are easily taken out of context.
And that's the whole point of this whole situation is that there's stuff being taken out of context. Just because the FBI showed it up and raided your house didn't mean they had a good reason to do it.
Absolutely.
Just because they had a judge sign off of it doesn't mean that they were all above board with regards to what was going on. Just because you plead the fifth doesn't make you guilty. Just because you have documents as a president in your possession doesn't mean that you're hiding something, because
That's right.
we've already shown that previous presidents since 1978, since the PRA was enacted, presidents have used documents, have withheld documents from Bush to Reagan to Obama to Clinton to all of them. Every single one of them have had documents retained for libraries and other functions.
Yeah.
So this is not news.
No. The only thing that I can see that's a little bit different, and only because I don't think we've paid as much attention to it in the past, is whether or not presidents have stored those documents in their personal.
Yeah, and that was my only question. But at the same time, given the nature of what you were stating, is that when they were down there during the spring and having reviewed the storage facility and been like, okay, just put another lock on it.
Yep.
To me, that's like, okay, you already had your chance. You effed it up. If you had any suspicions, you can't tell me this is something new. You can't tell me in the course of 3 to 4 months, suddenly they have suspicions that there's nuclear documentation on his property or in his possession.
Yeah, and that all came from an anonymous informant
Yes.
as well. It wasn't that the FBI agents that were there saw documents. It was from an anonymous informant.
This is no different than a red flag law gone wrong.
Yep.
somebody has an anonymous tip about their anonymous neighbor who anonymously has a right to own whatever, and they get called in because the anonymous tipper says, this person's crazy because they have a Gadsden flag, in their living room, or you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's
I get you.
But if that's why he needs to plead the fifth, because this needs to go to a jury. Now, here's the second part of this, is that they're talking about putting together a grand jury. And
Yep.
the weird part about this, and I've been reading through some forums, some subreddits and some other things talking about this whole piece, and one of the things that's coming up is that it looks like they're trying to push this into DC's district. So basically what would happen is that a grand jury could be selected from people in that district.
I don't know how they could do that.
I don't either.
And here's
and that
why
could just
I say
be
that.
hearsay, but
Because this should, if a grand jury is convened, the grand jury should be convened in the Southern District of Florida,
yes.
where the crime, quote unquote, was committed.
Yes.
Which is basic criminal law.
Yep.
Is that grand juries and trials are convened in the district to which the crime or alleged crime had been committed. So, all intents and purposes, they should be convening a grand jury in the Southern District of Florida.
Well, here's the other thing I'm kind of out of the loop on this, but I have read where the defense doesn't have any say in the selection of a grand jury,
I don't know how that works.
but the prosecution does.
I don't know how that
And if
works.
that's the case, I mean, I'll have to dig into that. We'll have to look more into that to get a solid answer
Well,
on that.
the grand jury is a little bit different than a trial jury.
Yeah, yeah.
A grand jury just decides whether or not someone should be charged with a crime.
Yeah.
And then there's a trial after that. So that may be why the grand jury, but that still doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, but the thing of it is that, you have to convene a grand jury to push it to trial. So, if by some weird flippity floppity flu, they somehow manage to pull together a grand jury out of Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Somebody made the statement, if you're going to pull together a grand jury, it should be represented from people from different states.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like one state represents, one small area, because that's like doing polling. That's like doing polling on a specific issue and only polling one neighborhood or one town about the issue.
Well, if the case was in Texas,
Yeah.
there'd be no issue. If the case was in Florida, there'd be no issue. If the case was in California, or in DC or New York or Chicago, there are no peers for Donald Trump in DC.
Yeah.
You cannot find a jury of his peers in Washington, D.C. because nobody in Washington, D.C. is a peer to Donald Trump. He lost D.C. like by 97 points or something crazy.
Yeah.
Biden almost swept D.C. So Clinton almost swept D.C. So it's not fair to Donald Trump to have this.
It wouldn't be fair to anybody, period.
No. Because it wouldn't even, if it was Hunter Biden, it wouldn't be fair because they're all his dad's cronies.
It would, vice versa. Like, it wouldn't be fair to him if, let's say, the grand jury was pulled out of Florida or Texas.
Yeah, absolutely.
For Hunter Biden.
Absolutely. So a change of venue would definitely be appropriate, and it should be taken at least to a neutral district.
I just don't know what.
Problem is what district is neutral?
Yeah, but you got to wonder. It's like what rules govern that whole process. Like how much leniency, how much flex do they have with regards to?
Well, Dave, we're gonna have to do a podcast episode.
Yeah, I guess so.
So
because I don't know.
so that we can learn, because I don't know either. I really don't know. I know juries. I know regular trial rules pretty well. I don't think I could pass the bar or anything, but I know quite a bit about the legal process, but grand juries are a mystery to me.
Yeah, I was a paralegal for a number of years, but I only did medical malpractice, so it was a little different.
Did you fall? Did you fall on your place or somebody else's?
Yeah, exactly. It was more like surgery related stuff, but
No ambulance chasers.
No ambulance chasers. Thankfully, didn't do any of that. But some of it was workers' compensation stuff. It was more like
So good on the good side of medical malpractice
for the most part. Yeah, I
That's
mean,
good.
I worked for attorneys that had some morals. When it came to that, they were good. A lot of them were
Very rare.
Good friends with doctors. They weren't interested in destroying the practice, basically. But anyways, yeah. Neither here nor there.
So maybe we'll do an episode on grand juries just so that we can understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But that's what happened. It's been a weird week.
Yeah.
What gets me, and we're gonna end the podcast here on a little bit of whataboutism. If you want to try the other ones,
Yeah.
while we're
So
kinda
these are
wrapping things up.
an energy bar. At least that's what they're called. I don't know what's in them.
Uh-oh. You want to split one?
No.
All right.
So these are a little weird, but I think you'll.
Okay.
So these are called Energy 99 bars. Why they called them that, I have no clue.
Smell like popcorn. Very chalky.
Yeah. Do you feel the moisture just being sapped out of your mouth?
It's very interesting.
You know what it reminds me of? Do you ever have like the vanilla wafers? Imagine just the cookie without the vanilla.
They're hollow. I don't know if you can see that. They're hollow. It reminds me of cereal.
Yeah.
It's got a very...
It's like a cereal bar almost.
That's very much what it tastes like to me, is like a cereal bar. Again, not bad.
Not great either.
The texture's...
Weird.
Yeah.
It's too much of something.
It's like... Oh... It's like if Cheerios made a cheese doodle. That's exactly what it tastes like.
Do you know the one thing I saw down there I almost picked up? Lay's actually makes a whole line of potato chip flavors that they only market in like China and in Asian markets.
Eel?
So they had one that was called Italian meat flavored potato chips. It was supposed to be like Italian food on a potato chip. I was just like, man, isn't that appetizing?
Yeah, man. I think this is better than these. I would eat these if I had to.
They're actually not crazy.
No, these aren't bad at all.
Neither one of these are crazy. Like
I want to look at the ingredients on these. Brown rice, palm oil, maltodextrin, rice, corn, granulated sugar, taro powder, don't know what that is, soy sauce powder, buckwheat, oatmeal, mung bean,
mung. Yeah.
lotus seed, pearl barley, pea, small red beans. So there's a lot of actually decent stuff in here. 176 calories per serving. Serving size, 3 rolls. 3 of these bitches is a serving size. 176 calories. Not bad.
I don't know
15 grams of carbs.
I don't know what the energy part is. I don't know if it has... I don't know.
Well, I mean, food gives you energy.
Yeah. You could say that about it.
I mean, they're not. I like these better than the
weird
whatever
beans.
These things are. These look like rabbit shit. And they're a little spicy. These are not bad. This is honestly, it's like if Cheerios made a cheese doodle. That's exactly what it tastes like. It tastes like a cheese doodle made with oats. Is what they're not bad. They're really not. They're really not.
Now we'll have indigestion for the rest of the day.
Yeah, or one of us will have a stroke. I don't know what's going to happen. So, again, it's a weird time.
Yeah.
It's a weird time in this country. People should be concerned because we're at a point now where
They're weaponizing the
Yes.
government organizations.
if, again, I have to preface this over and over again. Man, that gives me... Ugh. Okay.
Here we go.
Oh. It's trying to come back up. If
This week on Between the Lines.
if 45 did take things that he shouldn't have,
Yeah.
then I have no sympathy for what's coming. I really don't. Rules are rules, laws
Yeah.
are laws. Doesn't matter what your last name is, unless it's Biden.
Yeah.
But anyway, we at Between the Lines, Dave and I, are reserving judgment until we know more.
Yeah.
I'm not defending Donald Trump by any means at this point because, it looks bad,
Yeah.
but I'm also not on board with the DOJ or the FBI because it looks bad.
Yeah. Everybody looks bad.
Everybody is covered in shit
Yep.
right now.
Yep.
And we need to start spraying some people off to find out who's who and what's going on. So until we actually can see what those documents are, and get some verification as to whether any wrongdoing was actually done, I'm reserving judgment. Again, play a little bit of whataboutism here. There were 33,000 emails deleted
Yeah.
and acid washed from a computer, hard drives destroyed, cell phones smashed with hammers, and not one search warrant issued for Miss Clinton.
Yeah.
And again, but her emails. We know. We're tired of hearing about it too. But what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah. And the point is that if you're going to sit there and hypocritically talk about nobody's above the law, it's like, well, yeah, I agree. Nobody's above
and
the law.
for 4 years, we heard about how Hillary Clinton didn't do anything wrong and that this, that, and the third, and that everything she did was right. And I disagree. So that being said, if there were documents taken that shouldn't have been taken, then,
Yeah.
I'm on board. Whatever, throw the book, lock him up. We'll start that chant.
Yeah.
Lock him up. Lock him up. I don't care. But what's scary is if there wasn't anything in those documents and this was politically motivated, now we're chartering into dangerous waters.
Yeah.
And I think Mike Lee said it best is once this door is opened, you're not going to get it closed again.
Yeah.
So what he means by that is if there turns out to be a politically motivated raid and the Republicans take the House and Senate
All bets are
and
off.
a president is elected, what do you think is going to happen when the pendulum swings?
And that's the thing. Parties in power don't get it that if they don't think beyond themselves, they need to.
Yeah.
They need to think beyond themselves.
We need to stop thinking in 4-year, 2-year blocks.
Yeah.
Like China, the reason why China is so far ahead of us right now is because they think 100 years ahead.
Yeah.
They plan for the next century. They're not planning for the next election.
Of course, they also don't give people a choice as to.
I mean, I'm not trying to glorify China.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
No, I get what you're...
It's easy to make 100-year plans when you don't have anybody contesting them.
That's true. And you don't have elections.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
They might have elections, but they've already thrown in the ballot of who's...
Yeah, the elections are superficial. But at any rate, do your own research. Pay attention to what's going on because this could be the biggest thing that happens in your lifetime.
Yeah.
This is the biggest warrant I've ever heard of in my life, and it's the most overbroad. I believe the founders would be rolling in their graves over this warrant.
Yeah.
Because they hated general warrants, and that's what this is. This is a general warrant for you to go in and look for documents. That's what this is. So,
yeah, they could be like, hey, your mattress. We'll take your mattress because there's probably documents in there. Or,
They were reading the tags on Melania's underwear, making sure that they didn't have top secret designations.
Oh, God.
But anyway, do your own research. Go back and check out some of our older episodes. You can find us on Twitter at the BTL
Hey,
Podcast.
wait.
Oh, yep. Sorry. My fault. You can find us on Twitter at the BTL Podcast. You can find us on Facebook at PA Between the Lines. You can find us at our website, thebtlpodcast.com.
I think for me, it's not even the sax anymore. It's that dude in the background going,
So, check out our old episodes. Follow us on social media. Do your own research. Make your own opinions. Don't just form your opinions based on what the media is telling you to think. Look at the evidence objectively from the outside looking in and see, because that's what we're doing here. Obviously, we were supporters of the president before, and we still are so long as he didn't do anything wrong. If our opinion will change when we have more evidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So until next time, be cool, be safe, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.
Bye.